Daddy's going to start to take the training wheels off in next July, so you better practice riding.
That's Vice President Joe Biden talking about Afghanistan, but most 9-year-olds I know already can ride a bike.
Yeah, and I'm just not so sure President Karzai really appreciates that, but we'll find out. Top Line begins right now.
Hello and welcome to ABC News Top Line. I'm Zach Wolf.
And I'm Jonathan Karl.
Each day we bring you the latest, the greatest, everything you need to know in the world of politics. And with that, John, what's your top line?
Not so fast. You know, Zach, we saw clear signals coming from the White House that the president was up for a compromise with the Republicans on extending all of the tax cuts, including those on the wealthy, at least temporarily. But Democrats here in Congress just don't seem like they're on board. Take a listen to what Harry Reid had to say.
The question is, do I think I have the president backing for middle income tax cut only? And I say yes.
And you know, Zach, we heard a very similar message last night from Steny Hoyer in the House. It looks like Democrats are thinking that they can hold the line and saying that they don't want to extend those tax cuts on the wealthy even temporarily.
We shall see. Harry Reid might have the president's backing, but he doesn't have his vote anymore. And of course, that seat now belongs to a Republican. Next up, bringing in the big guns. The U.S. is sending tanks to Afghanistan for the very first time. They'll arrive in December. A small number of tanks to support Marines there. The president is en route or in Lisbon, along with General Petraeus, to drum up some more support among NATO leaders for the war in Afghanistan. John, when was the last time you heard somebody talk about that 2011 drawdown start date? Everybody's talking about 2014 now. Are we going to start seeing some outrage about that arbitrary deadline?
Well, you know, I think you will from some of the Republicans, but it's complicated, Zach, because a lot of the Republicans that got elected this time around have some real concerns about the direction in Afghanistan. These are small government Republicans, and some of them don't like nation building either in Afghanistan or maybe even in the United States. So we'll see where that goes. One important point about this, Zach, is you're only talking about 14 tanks going over. This isn't some massive new thing, but the optics are terrible. Everybody remembers the Soviets going into Afghanistan with tanks. That's not the visual that the Americans want. Next up, Wrangled Up and Blue. Apologies to Bob Dylan. Charlie Rangel, of course, has been censured by the Ethics Committee. They're going to recommend that. That will go to a vote of the full House. And Rangel was very emotional yesterday, Zach, making it clear to everybody that he wants it to be known that he never tried to enrich himself. Here's a little snippet.
But they will continue to call me a crook and charge me being corrupt.
Now consider this, Zach. The way that this will happen if the House votes to censure is the Speaker of the House, and this will be the outgoing Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, will have to actually read the rap sheet against Rangel on the House floor directly to Rangel in front of all his colleagues. It'll be quite a picture.
So, yeah, great political theater, and we always love that. And it's only getting started because starting after Thanksgiving, we'll have Maxine Waters before the Ethics Committee as well. Next up, we have Ready, Set, Wait. John, you remember 2008? It was the presidential campaign that wouldn't end. It started January and February after the midterm elections. This year, it's going to take a lot longer. Mitt Romney has indicated he's not going to make a final decision until March or even later. Sarah Palin, everybody agrees, can wait pretty much as long as she wants to swoop into Iowa and start, trying to drum up votes there. But let's not forget, she does have a book tour that starts, and she'll be there very soon.
Yeah, it sure looks like she's got a campaign already underway, declared or not. But Zach, we are now joined by Congressman Tom Cole, Republican of Oklahoma. Thank you so much for joining us here on Top Line. So I want to pick up with the tax cuts. Okay. What's your sense? You've been around here for a while. You know how this place works. Do you think we're going to see a tax cut extension voted during the lame duck, or is this going to get kicked down to January?
Well, I tell you, this has been a very dysfunctional Congress. It never got a budget written. Frankly, it's not gotten any of its appropriations work done, and this still rests with the majority. I hope we do. I think our aim is to make sure taxes go up on absolutely no one in the middle of a recession, and I have every confidence that the votes are there if the Speaker will put something on the floor to pass something that dramatic and at least buy a couple of years, or make part of it, if not all of it, permanent, which would be our desired goal.
Congressman, now you're a member of the transition team. You're helping bring Republicans into power. One of the things we're hearing from new members and even older members is that they don't really want to be appropriators. It's become a dirty word here in Washington. You're on the Appropriations Committee. Are you going to keep that seat?
Yeah, I absolutely am. And I think people are going to find out when the Appropriations Committee is run correctly, and I think it will be under Republican leadership. It will actually be the point of the sword in terms of cutting spending. They're thinking about an Appropriations Committee that's been run by Democrats for 4 years, not by what Republicans will do. There'll be a lot of tough decisions to be made, a lot of hard votes to be cast, but at the end of the day, I'm very confident that the Republican appropriators are going to shrink the size of discretionary spending in government.
But that would be something, appropriators cutting spending. You're a member of the Republican transition team, getting ready for the new leadership.
Yeah.
You're also, as Zach mentioned, a member of the Appropriations Committee and somebody who has been quite an earmarker over the course of his term. I've got a list of some of your earmarks here. You had 74 earmarks in the last Congress, some $86 million. And you expressed some real concerns about this earmark ban. Are you now a convert?
No, actually, well, I respect the will of my conference. I mean, I think, look, this has become a symbolic issue. People want to focus on it, and I'm all for saying let's just not have any earmarks. But I think there are times when you need to have discretionary spending, the ability to target money in certain ways. The Predator is a good example of that. There's probably our most important weapons system in the war on terror, and it was opposed by the Pentagon, by the Air Force. They weren't interested in things without planes. That was an earmark. GPS on your car began funded by earmarks. So, you have to, I think, look at each one, but overall spending needs to come down.
But let me ask you this: for people that come from states like Oklahoma, that you could argue don't get their fair share of the federal pie. Some are. You can argue it both ways. Do you think that people, Republicans, especially from states like yours, will come to regret this earmark moratorium?
No, I don't think so. I think the moratorium, again, is serving a very useful purpose. Look, we've got to restore credibility of the Appropriations Committee and the Congress with the American people. This is one of those things, it's pretty minor in terms of the amount of money. Let's just get it off the table for a while, and let's see whether or not Congress will make the tough decisions in cutting spending. I'm really comfortable that that's going to happen under Republican leadership. And then we can look on a case-by-case basis. Are there specific things that need to be funded or not funded? Remember, earmarks don't add to spending. We vote a budget. That's how much we're going to spend. The earmark just says within this budget, you're going to do X, Y, or Z. That's what the Predator earmark was. It wasn't a plus-up. It just forced the Pentagon to spend time on a weapon system that proved to be very valuable for us. So I think you want to think twice about removing tools from legislators, but right now it's not a popular tool. I respect that decision by my conference, and let's get about the business of cutting spending.
Congressman, we've got some really serious proposals out there from Alice Rivlin and former Republican Senator Domenici, and also from Erskine Bowles and Alan Simpson on how to reform taxes, how to generate some more revenue. They all say you can't cut your way out of this program or out of this deficit and debt problem. You can't grow your way out of this deficit and debt problem. Are the Republicans eventually going to come around to the notion that there has to be some additional revenue coming into the Treasury to deal with the deficit and the debt?
I think you start with the things you know you have to do. Look, everybody knows that we have to cut. So let's cut and see how far we go. Everybody does know that we need to grow. So let's do some things that encourage job creation and growth. And finally, everybody knows that we need to make serious entitlement reform. I think that actually will be the big flashpoint in things. And that means making tough looks at things like Social Security and Medicare. Those things I always like to point out to my friends are actually the purview of the Ways and Means Committee. Tax policy and entitlement policy is what really sort of unbalances the budget more than appropriations. But if we don't get serious about those things, we're going to have a fiscal crisis that we can't handle. So I'm pleased these commissions are making us go back and think about the basics thing, and I think we can move pretty dramatically in the right direction over the next year or two.
All right, Simpson and Bowles on the cutting side talk about $100 billion in cuts from the defense budget. Is that realistic to you?
I'm not going to get into precise figures, but yeah, there needs to be some cuts there. Look at the procurement systems. Look at redundant weapons systems. There are things like that. You could still, our country is the strongest country in the world. We spend more on the military than the next 10 or 12 combined, and that's good that we do. We've got a great military and it protects us very well. But anybody that tells you there's no waste or duplication in the Pentagon, I can assure you hadn't been on either the Armed Services Committee or the Appropriations Committee. There is, and I think actually Secretary Gates recognized that, has been pushing the Pentagon in that direction, deserves a lot of credit for what he's done under both Republican and Democratic administrations. We need to work with him.
Well, seeing Republicans talking about cutting defense spending, this would be interesting.
Well, I think it's going to. I think everything is on the table. Look, we all know we've got a fiscal crisis. When Admiral Mullins is telling you the greatest threat to our security is an unbalanced budget, and that's a military guy, maybe we ought to be listening to him. And again, everything, no sacred cows.
Fascinating. Tom Cole, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
Thanks.